welcome to the 2022 Texas Great Debate Finals. Let's give all participants a big round of applause for the great work. Again, I just want to thank our project administrators, our parents and chaperones, our head coaches and fellows who have committed back to their home communities to develop our brightest leaders to come to the Texas Great Debate. The last time we've had this again since 2019, so we are building on the new future of new generation of NHIers out in the community. So students, remember that starting tomorrow when you board your bus back home, you now get to serve in a leadership role in your local community, touch base with your project administrators, your head coaches, and find out how to stay involved. As a reminder, what has transpired over the course of these last couple of days, and for those that are watching live on YouTube, all of our students participated in 4 rounds yesterday. We determined our top 16 or top 12 students or teams to compete in a single elimination tournament today, and they competed, and today is our showcase where we will have our finalists that will present here in front of everybody and live. Students that didn't advance moved over to a new debate event called Athenian, where they organized themselves into pods of members from other regions, and they competed against their peers, and we will have our top 6 speakers, 3 from each house, that will showcase the work that they've done. But before I begin, tournament staff, where are you? If you can stand up, tournament staff, that we're here. Our tournament staff, the tournament room is such a different, unique, great debate experience. I hope that you stay involved. To be there, it's stressful, it's chaotic, but it's awesome at the conclusion that you were able to get it done. Thank you. They were up late and they were working hard. All those with the green ribbons, the fellows, please stand up and serve as judges. Thank you so very much, judges. Next year and serve as a judge, but that will require you to go back into your community, identify the new leaders, stay involved, and commit to those meetings every weekend, and to come here to serve as a judge. But before I begin, I want to do a roll call really quickly, and so that we can move on. Ladies and gentlemen, where's Austin? Where is Corpus Christi? Where is Houston? Where is North Texas? Where is RGV? Where is San Antonio? Where is Tip of Texas? Very good. So the process will be today, I'm going to call up extemporaneous speakers so they can leave to go prepare their speech when they're given the prompt. We will go with cross-examination first, oratory second, then we will come back to extemp and finish off with mock trial. Afterwards, we will have our showcase of our Athenian speakers, but I want to know which house thinks that they're going to be the winning house. Is it House Maxwell? Yeah! Or is it House Magnolia? Let's try again. House Maxwell? House Magnolia? So at this time, I would like to invite to the stage, to the seats over here, and please help me give a big round of applause for the 2022 Texas Great Debate Finalists. Come on in and grab your seats over here. At this time, I would like to introduce our finals judges. And the way that we have it structured is that we have 3 finalist judges. Our tournament director will be the MC of the debate, who will walk through the process, and our assistant tournament director will serve as the team manager. Our first judge serving today for the 2022 Texas Great Debate. She currently serves as the Executive Vice President of the National Hispanic Institute, is a native of Austin, graduated from Johnson High School and Vassar College, and a dual MBA from the University of Texas at Austin and El Tec de Monterrey. She works on all the NHI policy with the Board of Directors and research, publications, institutional relations, and is the Chief Financial Officer at NHI. She went to the LDZ, Texas LDZ in 1986, and was the first winning coach of the first ever CWS in 1991. Ladies and gentlemen, your first finalist judge, Nicole Nieto. Our next finals judge, a native of San Antonio and a participant in the 2010 Texas Great Debate, went on to the 2011 New York LDZ in Rochester, then participated in the 2012 Texas CWS, and is a former staff member at NHI programs in California, Colorado, New York, and Texas, is a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, a former NHI College Student of the Year, an environmental data analyst at the San Antonio River Authority Educational Director of the Colorado LDZ. Your second finalist judge, Paul Martinez. And the last finals judge needs no introduction because she was a rock star with House Magnolia, Miss Marina Flores. And really quickly, our clock manager, if you could please stand up, Isabella Zapata from the Rio Grande Valley. And our tournament director, and a big round of applause, originally from San Antonio, Jared Quintero. So again, the process, I will invite the extemp speakers so that you can see them. They will go down to the river room. They will have exactly 30 minutes for the prompt. When you're finished, you come right back here to the stage and find your seat. If I can first ask come to the stage is the extemp draw director, Penelope Macias from Austin. And speaker 1 for extemporaneous speaking from Tipa, Texas, Katie Longoria. And speaker number 2 from North Texas, Sofia Garcia. So ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our extemp finalists. Just come out back here inside afterwards and have them find their seat. Thank you. I have a very important announcement. I think it's important that they know who will be our 6 speakers for Athenian. I don't have the regions, but bear with me here. I'm sure we can figure it out. Representing House Magnolia, and I don't have the pod, but Tabitha Kennedy. Also from Magnolia, Lucas Castillo. And also the 3rd speaker for House Magnolia, Miguel Olvera. Representing the 3 speakers for House Maxwell, Rowan Duncan. Second speaker for House Maxwell, James Hernandez. And the 3rd speaker for House Maxwell, Yareli Abando. Well, big congratulations to our Athenian speakers. While we're in here, it's important that you look over your notes and get ready for your presentation at the conclusion of mock trial. So, let's move on to cross-examination. Are we ready? Arguing in the position of the affirmative. From San Antonio, the leader, Mara Flores, and the member, Avery Parvin. Next up, arguing in the position of opposition from El Paso, the leader, Victoria Galindo, and member, Monet Munoz.
The power. Even at the power.
For opposition,
the power, yes.
The leader is Victoria Galindo. Oh, you're the member? Victoria is the member? Okay, my correction here. Victoria Galindo is the member, and then Monet Munoz is the leader. Is that correct? Monet, and for the affirmative, the leader is Mara Flores, is that correct? And the member is Avery Parvin. I'm going to ask that you turn your ringers off, no flashes. What I enjoy about this particular debate is it is truly a clash up here, and I'm going to ask that we hold all applauses until the end of the overall debate. Our leaders are going to come up here, and you're probably going to give a great speech up here, and people are going to want to applaud. Let's hold it to the very end. If there is some challenge up here on stage with the cross-examination, let's hold all comments, let's be quiet, let's give them the respect that they need here on stage until the conclusion, and then we can congratulate them. Okay, so while the judges are getting ready, I'm going to talk to you all really quickly, and then Jared, you can start it off. I just asked that the clock manager share with them what the signals are going to be.
30 seconds, 15, 5 seconds.
Good afternoon, Judge. My name is Mara Flores, and my partner's name is Avery Parvin. We are on the affirmative side of the resolve, which states that American use of social advocacy and reform that have mainly been used throughout the 20th century will no longer be effective in a new modern era. Our value is to make progress by moving away from advocacy and reform, and our value criterion is to promote community equity building as a means that will solve the issues advocacy and reform have failed to address. Our first contention is that the Alamo colleges use community equity building as a way to grow past social advocacy by using their assets. The Alamo Promise program ensures tuition for students wanting to get a degree or academic certificate from one of the 5 Alamo colleges, and it serves about 10,000 students. Because of their success, the Alamo colleges earned 2 grants from Mackenzie Scott, totaling $35 million to fund the program and other services. This is an example of community equity building that by bringing forth its assets was also able to gain outside resources. On the other hand, social advocacy focuses on deficits, and it has made little progress. Take the Los Angeles walkouts in 1968. The Board of Education didn't budge, and half a century later, Latinos are still behind. In 2017, Latino students' test scores dropped in California with only 17% excelling in math and 26% in English. Therefore, by building a foundation using the assets we already have, we make more progress than by focusing on deficits having yet to be fixed. Our second contention is that community equity building gives Latinos more control than advocacy and reform. Third Reality by Ernesto Nieto. In Third Reality by Ernesto Nieto, he talks about the political landscape of DC and the role Latinos play in it, describing it as a place where Latinos are essentially pawns in a game of constant political power. He concludes that they needed to search for other channels where Latinos could be in greater control. Community equity building gives Latinos so much more control than advocacy and reform, because when we insert ourselves into the overall narrative, we can be taken advantage of by those in power, and they are the ones deciding our futures. However, with community equity building, Latinos are in control rather than being pawns. Finally, our third contention is that social advocacy and reform haven't achieved sufficient representation in our community. As young Latinos wanting to create change, role models are important to us, yet finding adequate Latino representation in the current social narrative is difficult. Reporter Yeka Burris states that Latinos are less than 2% of elected officials nationwide, but roughly 18% of the population. It is clear from this that we are still very underrepresented, and we can't sit around waiting for the status quo to do its job of bringing us towards parity at the current rate it's going at. However, good role models and leaders can be created and can flourish by moving away from advocacy. One example is NHI, with fundamentals promoting leadership like number 21, lead by serving and inspiring others. Judge, social advocacy is a dated practice, so I urge you to side with the affirmative. We need to move past advocacy and reform, otherwise harm will continue to be done. And we need to use community equity building to secure the best future for Latinos in our community. Thank you. Ready.
At the judge's discretion. Are you aware of social movements such as the LULAC movement?
Yes.
Are you aware this was for education?
Yes.
Are you aware that with this LULAC movement, Latinos got from 80% graduation rates to 88% graduation rates from 1990 to 2015?
We are still not at parity, and this social movement is not doing enough. We need to abandon social advocacy and use a different method, or else harm will continue to be done.
Okay, thank you. Wouldn't you say that social advocacy makes me express feelings?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What do 20th century movements have to do with the Alamo colleges?
Could you rephrase the question?
The 20th century movements within the resolve that have to affect 21st century, what does these 20th century movements have to do with the Alamo colleges using community equity building?
We're stating that there are better alternatives than the harm being done by social advocacy, and we provided evidence for that in our first contention, which was the facts.
Okay, thank you. Can you name the harms and effects?
Well, the harm that we brought up was the Los Angeles walkouts, and then 50 years later, there is still...
Thank you. Are you aware of the Chicano movement?
Yes.
Are you aware of what it stood for?
Yes.
Are you aware of its founder?
Yes.
Can you name its founder?
Cesar Chavez.
Okay, thank you. Are you aware that the Chicano movement was to embrace political power, and with this move, we got 136 representative officials in legislation?
We are still not at parity, and I do have evidence for that in my third contention. 2% of the representatives in Congress are Latinos, yet
Okay,
there's
thank you.
18%.
The 20th century movements of the past have helped us bring us out to where we are today. Why do you think this will not happen anymore?
Because we need to keep up with the times, and we still have not made enough progress to be a parity.
How do you think community equity building helps with social action? Promotes better social action?
Community equity building actually abandons social advocacy.
Good afternoon, Judge. My partner and I stand in firm negation of the resolution at hand, which states that the American use of social advocacy and reform practices from the 20th century will no longer be effective in the 21st century. I would like to start off with my opponent's value and value criteria. Their value was making progress with community equity building, and the value criteria was promoting community equity building. Now,
Get closer to the microphone.
partner ready? Ready. Opponent ready? Ready. At the judge's discretion. Good afternoon, Judge. My partner and I stand in firm negation of the resolve at hand, which states that the American use of 20th century advocacy will no longer be effective in modern day era. I would like to start off with my opponent's value and value criteria. Their value was making progress with community equity building, and their value criteria was promoting community equity building. In their first contention, they spoke of the Alamo colleges. They said that this is community equity building, and this is the way to go if we really want to make progress as a Latino community. This is wrong because social advocacy is the way to go if we want to make progress as a Latino community. Social advocacy has been working for the past century and continues to work today. Social advocacy got us to where we are today, and that is how we know that it's effective. Social advocacy is what helps us do better and be better, and that is why we must turn to it. In their second contention, they spoke about how community equity building gives more control. This is wrong because social advocacy is control. Social advocacy gives us more freedom of speech to really be able to express ourselves and always be able to say what we think and be able to express ourselves the way that we need to get where we need to be. In the third contention, they spoke about how social advocacy does not achieve anything. Social advocacy has achieved so many things with so many movements. This leads me on to my next point. Social advocacy is a positive thing because it helps us in a social aspect, a political aspect, and an economic aspect. Starting with the political aspect, as of today, we have 136 representatives in legislation. Some of these representatives being Latino, all of these representatives being Latino, some of which include Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and AOC. Judge, there's a question we have to be asking here. How did these representatives get to where they are today? Which leads me on to my next point of how social advocacy helps us in the social aspect. They got here because they were able to have education and they were able to rise up through the ranks with the education they were given to be smart and to be the leaders that we need today. The LULAC movement helped us achieve education rights. They helped us gain funding in the school systems to be able to help Latino children gain the education that they deserve. Not only did we see a positive effect with the funds, but we also saw the graduation rates increase from 80% to 88%. Next, I would like to talk about the economic effects. Cesar Chavez was a very influential figure because not only did he start the Chicano movement, but he also started the United Farm Workers movement. The United Farm Workers movement helped us gain better wages for the Latino community, and that is why I'm standing here today being able to talk to you, because we were represented and we were being valued for what we are in the community. We must uphold the status quo today because the status quo has gotten us to where we are, and if we don't keep that, we will not advance as a community. The status quo helps us. The status quo helped us be better. Judge, side with litigation in favor of upholding the status quo, which will keep the Latinx community going strong for this century and many more to come. Thank you.
Are you a proud member of the Latino community?
Yes, I am in fact a proud member of the Latino community.
If you were a proud member of the Latino community, wouldn't you want to change the community equity building so we can grow our community at a faster growing pace?
I believe that the way to properly change our community is with social advocacy because that is what gives us good solutions and has been working for the
Okay,
past
thank you.
decade.
We have seen in the past 6 years that we have barely made a change. So why should we stick with social advocacy?
Because social advocacy is the status quo, and the status quo has got us to where we are today. So if it worked then, why wouldn't it work now?
So you're basically saying that even though we have made barely any progress, you see it as a lot of progress, correct?
We have made a lot of progress.
So what progress have you made?
We have gained education rights, we have gained wage rights, as I stated before. The Latinx community is advancing no matter what, and social advocacy is what's helping us get there.
So how do we know that social advocacy is what is only helping us?
Through the social advocacy movements that we see.
Okay. So why would we stick with social advocacy if we know that community equity building will grow us at a faster growing pace?
Because we know that social advocacy works.
Okay, thank you. So why should we stick with something that, why shouldn't we change community equity building if we don't even know that social advocacy will work in the period that we are right now?
We do know it will work because it's the status quo. The status quo is alive today, meaning that it works today. If it wasn't alive today, it wouldn't work today, but it is, and we are here, we are now, and it's working.
Okay. So you're saying that even though you're a proud member of the Latino community, you want to stick with social advocacy, even though it hasn't made very much progress, which is basically saying that we need to change right now, correct?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Why should we stick with social advocacy if we know that there is better solutions out there?
Because social advocacy is one of the better solutions.
So how do you know it is a better solution?
Because it works.
Okay, no more further time to this. Judge, as an affirmative, our value is to make progress by moving away from advocacy and reform. And the opposition didn't attack this at all. And our value criterion is to promote community equity building as a means that will solve the issues advocacy and reform has failed to address. Then again, they did not attack our value or value criterion, which is basically saying that we are right, that community equity building is the way to go. Our first contention states that Alamo colleges use community equity building as a way to grow past social advocacy by using assets. Social advocacy is the way to go, which they stated in the cross-examination. But as we've seen, we still need more change in our education, and using community equity building will bring assets to the community and will raise our community. We need to stay away from social advocacy because we won't make the progress that we need. We need to use all of our assets and come together. Community equity building is a way that we can do that. As we can say, that we need a solution, and we're saying that the social advocacy is not working right now. So a solution right now is community equity building. Our third contention states that social advocacy and reform haven't achieved efficient representation for our community. We want to create change, and this is why community equity building will help us get there. They said that social advocacy has achieved so much, but we haven't seen that. In the past 60 years, we have barely made any progress. They said that social advocacy is a positive and political and social, but community equity building will bring everybody's assets together so we can build our community and have more representatives all around the world. Social advocacy, as said, has achieved efficient representation, but we are 16% below partial, which we shouldn't be there. We should be more ahead. We need more representation. And doing that is moving into community equity building. We need to change to community equity building right now, unless social advocacy will tear our community apart. Judge, you must side with the affirmative, because if not, those negative things will continue to happen around the world and will tear down our Latino community. Thank you.
Partner ready?
Ready?
Opponent ready?
Ready.
At the judge's discretion. Good afternoon, Judge. My partner and I still stand in firm negation of the resolve at hand, which states the American use of social advocacy and reform practices that have mainly been used throughout the 20th century will no longer be effective in the new modern era. As Ernesto Nieto said, fueled by imagination, faith, the will to act, there are no barriers strong enough to discourage the human spirit to succeed. This is part of social advocacy and what we have been using for the past century. The resolve at hand talks about 20th century social advocacy movements being used today in the new modern era and how they positively and directly have affected them. In the first contingent, they talked about how Alamo colleges have used community equity building to build a more sustainable place. But they did not explain to me why social advocacy directly affected the Alamo College into changing into community equity building, and mentioned the LA walkouts that directly affected different colleges, which they did not prove. Which is their whole position of affirmation, is to prove with statistics on why they should be correct. And with fundamental aid of appreciate and acknowledge, we must appreciate social advocacy and all that it has worked for, because it has been working since the 20th century to the 21st century, because it adapts to who we are today. In the second contention of more control, social advocacy helps me us express and has a sense of identity of how we belong together, on how we can be a community that is unified, and with this control of social advocacy, we can completely see what is works. And the third contention of them stating how social advocacy does not affect us in a very long time, we can see that in the LULAC movement that has been here for 90 years and has adapted and it has moved us, that with education that has helped directly to the Latino community, we have seen an 80 to 88 increase in graduation rates for Latino community. With the Chicano movement, this encouraged them to be politically active. With this politically active movement, we got 136 representatives. That's something that social advocacy did, not any other reform practices, and it came from the 20th century to the new modern era. As Ernesto Nieto said in chapter 12, I must rephrase. We experienced discrimination. We did not see it on TV. We did not read it on newspapers, but we fought for it. And we fought through it with social advocacy as it was the status quo of the 20th century, and we must still be implying it today. And the value relates to progress. Progress is seen in social advocacy as we can see that it adapts and it works, because this is what we've been using to get here today. This is why I am standing here today. From social advocacy directly affecting us in our globalized 21st century, with movements such as the LULAC and Chicano movements that greatly affect us as a Latino community, to all our contentions falling. As our first contention does not prove me why Alamo has used community equity building. Their second contention of them bringing how I get more of an express, and the third contention of them not having sustainability. Thank you.
Judge, we proved in our first contention that we need to have a change. In regard to education, there are better solutions than social advocacy. We shouldn't settle for the bare minimum if there are better solutions than social advocacy out there, and we should use community equity building other than social advocacy, as we've seen. They mentioned that Cesar Chavez helped us be where we are today, but we still have unsafe working conditions everywhere around the world. But by changing to community equity building, we can use our assets so there won't be unsafe working conditions at this day. As said in Third Reality, Latinos are essential pawns. And if we stick with Cesar Chavez, we will have unsafe working conditions. So the Latino community will be torn apart. But using community equity building would use those assets to have a safer working place to be at. Why should we settle for bare minimum? Then said again, we need to do better in the Latino community. We have not done enough as seen. In the past 6 years, we have barely made any change. And we need to make change at a faster growing pace and able to have the Latino community at the same level as every other community. Judge, I urge you to side with the affirmative, or else the harm will negatively affect the Latino community. Thank you.
Another big round of applause for our cross-examination finalists. We're going to have a seat with the other finalists there. Moving on to the event of oratory. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage our oratory finalists. Speaker 1 for oratory from Tip of Texas, Ana Butron. And our second speaker for oratory from El Paso, Melina Balcorta.
El Paso for life.
would mind just explaining the times again, I'll turn it over to our tournament director.
Hace 3 años mis papás me dijeron que me metiera a un equipo de voleibol, pero después de 2 meses me quise salir del equipo. Las niñas se burlaban mucho de mí y ya no lo soportaba. Mis papás no me dejaron salir del equipo y me dijeron que siempre tengo que acabar lo que empiezo para tener toda la experiencia que me deja trabajar en un equipo. Yo estaba muy confundida y frustrada con mis papás porque no entendía sus motivos. Pero al pasar el tiempo, entendí que ellos estaban correctos. Yo, después de escuchar sus palabras, volví al equipo con una mejor actitud y estaba determinada para enseñarles que no me iba a rendir y que iba a tratar mi mejor para jugar bien. Buenas tardes, juez. Mi nombre es Ana María Butrón y hoy les vengo a presentar una agenda que permitirá que nuestra comunidad sane a través de 3 creencias: la perseverancia, acabar lo que empezamos y hacer las cosas con una buena actitud. De todas las lecciones que mis papás me han dado, el valor más importante que he aprendido de ellos es acabar lo que empiezo. Una comunidad necesita poder acabar lo que empieza para seguir adelante y sobrepasar obstáculos. Si usamos este valor, nos puede dar confianza en nosotros mismos y esta confianza se transformará en confianza para toda la comunidad. Y juez, es fundamental que nuestra comunidad tenga esto. Si usamos este valor, nos podemos dar un sentimiento de logro, de que algo que es difícil en hacer, por fin se logró. Mis papás siempre me han recordado la importancia de perseverar en situaciones difíciles. Ellos me enseñaron que con esto puedo sobrepasar cosas y perseverar en el futuro. Esta lección que me dieron concuerda con lo que dijo Ernesto Nieto en el capítulo 1, Legado de la Familia, de su libro Tercera Realidad. Saber trabajar con una comunidad viene desde antes que tú, desde antes que nacieras. Esta enseñanza que me dieron mis papás me ayuda a ser una mejor líder en mi comunidad latina. Pero estas enseñanzas vienen desde antes que naciera, vienen desde generaciones pasadas. Un día, cuando estaba pescando con mi papá, un pescado muy grande se enganchó en mi caña. Él me motivó a tener perseverancia para yo poder enrollar el pescado. Y esta motivación es lo que a mí me ayudó a poder hacerlo yo misma. La perseverancia nos ayuda a una comunidad porque nos ayuda a sanar, nos ayuda a ver obstáculos y sobrepasarlos. Nos ayuda a formar un gran futuro para nuestra comunidad. Mi mamá nunca me ha permitido olvidar que siempre debo hacer las cosas con una buena actitud. Ella me dice que si las hago con una buena actitud, puedo disfrutarlas más. La gente de una comunidad necesita tener una mentalidad positiva, una mentalidad en donde pueden decir, yo puedo hacer esto. Esta mentalidad les puede dar una ventaja en hacer cosas más fáciles, pero bien hechas. Pues, una comunidad necesita a alguien, a un líder, que tenga la capacidad de enseñarle a su comunidad que tienen que tener una buena mentalidad y acabar todo. Acaba aprendiendo que una comunidad necesita hacer cosas con una buena actitud para poder sobrepasar situaciones que cambian nuestras perspectivas del mundo. Pues, junto con las lecciones que me dieron mis padres y de mis propias experiencias, me he dado cuenta lo fundamental que son tener fundamentales en nuestra comunidad. Y con mi propia experiencia en el voleibol, yo también me he dado cuenta lo importante que son tener creencias en nuestras propias vidas. He aprendido lo importante que es tener perseverancia en nuestra comunidad, acabar lo que empezamos y hacer cualquier cosa con una actitud positiva. Con mi experiencia en el voleibol, me di cuenta que mis papás no me dejaron salir por mi bien. No me dejaron salir porque me querían enseñar unas creencias fundamentales para mi vida y que nunca se me van a olvidar. Pues, ¿usted está listo para implementar estos valores en nuestra vida y en nuestra comunidad? Gracias.
Haber crecido dentro de un núcleo familiar conservador, donde las mujeres callan y los hombres dirigen, ha hecho que yo sea más persistente ante lo que quiero y lo que pienso. En casa me enseñaban a escuchar y seguir órdenes. Los hombres de mi familia siempre tenían la razón, y aunque no fuera así, yo tenía que pretender que sí la tenía. Así como hay grandes muestras de machismo, que ahora esta generación está tratando de cambiar, también existen costumbres y tradiciones que muy adentro contienen micromachismos, tan aceptados por la comunidad latina que ya ni siquiera los notamos. Cosas como que solo tengas el apellido de tu padre, o el hecho de que las mujeres nunca hemos tenido apellidos propios. Los apellidos para las mujeres eran inicialmente para saber a quién le pertenecías. Este tipo de micromachismos han hecho que yo, Melina Valcorta, quiera tener un impacto en la visión que la comunidad latina tiene hacia las mujeres de NHI y el mundo. A lo largo de mi vida he conocido personas, en especial mujeres, ya sea en persona o por internet, que me han enseñado a levantar mi voz y no quedarme callada, especialmente a mi maestra de álgebra, que no solo siempre estuvo para mí, sino que me aconsejaba de la mejor manera para que yo fuera fuerte y aprendiera a valerme por mí misma, tanto en la escuela como fuera de ella. Ella viene de una familia latina y siempre entendió los desafíos por los que yo pasaba. Me enseñó a que cuando algo no me parece, debo alzar mi voz y decirlo. También que ser un buen líder no me priva de tener emociones o de vez en cuando tener un mal momento, y que llorar está bien cuando es necesario. Al momento en el que ella se casó, ella no se cambió el apellido. Esto es una muestra de independencia, puesto que no muchas mujeres lo hacen. Y es importante reconocer este tipo de acciones para que al momento en el que otra mujer quiera hacerlo, no se le criminalice por ello. También me enseñó a que siempre me voy a poner a mí misma antes que nada, y no por egoísmo, sino por mi bienestar y lo que es mejor para mí. Ella ha tenido un gran impacto en mi vida. En clase siempre fue muy abierta en cuanto a los temas del feminismo. Por ella fue que yo conocí el movimiento Un Día Sin Nosotras. De acuerdo con Marea Verde MX, en México matan a 11 mujeres al día. 40.1% de las mujeres en México han vivido, como lo mencioné antes, insultos, amenazas, humillaciones y otras ofensas de tipo psicológico o emocional, seguido del económico, como control o chantaje en sus relaciones. Más de la mitad de mujeres mexicanas han sufrido de esto. A causa de ello, desde el año 2020, en México se realizó un paro nacional. Con el fin de crear conciencia sobre qué pasaría si un día todas las mujeres desaparecieran. Este día, las mujeres no salen a la calle, no trabajan, no van a la escuela y no hacen labores. Un Día Sin Nosotras fue el día que unificó a todas nosotras como líderes mujeres. Las protestas que se ven tienen un fin, y es crear la independencia en nosotras. Porque yo soy una líder independiente en NHI, la influencia en lo que escribo me permite alzar mi voz por mí y por todas. Es importante poner estos temas sobre la mesa para los líderes de mañana. Mi maestra de álgebra lo hacía. Ella no tenía este tabú sobre los temas del machismo.
Si había algo, si veíamos algo, ella lo identificaba y nos lo hacía ver. Y así es como yo hoy quiero que quien me escuche abra los ojos e identifique todo esto también. Porque si estuviera en sus manos, ella lo haría. And if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Basándome en el fundamento número 17 de los valores de NHI. Todas estas cosas que han impactado mi vida me han dado la oportunidad de ser quien soy hoy. Yo, Melina Valcorta, hoy represento y presto mi voz no solo a las mujeres latinas, sino a todas las mujeres de NHI, junto con los valores que mi maestra de álgebra me enseñó. Como lo dice Ernesto Nieto en el capítulo 14 de Third Reality, un niño con visión, ánimo y ambición no lo detienen los obstáculos de la vida, ni la pobreza, ni la discriminación. A child with vision, drive and ambition cannot be held back by obstacles in life, not even poverty nor discrimination. Thank you and gracias.
Guys, can you all hear me? Just a reminder, clapping is not allowed. Okay, thank you.
Before we begin, the question was, if you could add just one.
The question was, if you could add just one more element to your presentation, what would it be?
Speaker one, you now have 2 minutes to answer the question. Time starts when you start.
If I could add one more element to my presentation, I would probably add one more thing to my speech, which would be another value. I would implement fundamental number 4, which is honoring commitments. Like Ernesto Nieto said in his chapter 1, Legacy of a Family, saber trabajar con una comunidad viene desde antes que tú, viene desde antes que nacieras, which translates to, knowing how to work with a community comes before you. It comes before you were born. I believe that by honoring commitments, we can work together as a community to grow. And this, by growing by a community, I believe that this would make my speech better. And with a community, we can help each other, represent other things. With a community, it is important to live, to support each other, and to always be there for one another. This is very important to add to my speech, because I believe that I was missing something like this. But by honoring commitments, we can tell each other if we need help and if we don't. Thank you.
speaker 2, you now have 2 minutes to answer your question. The time starts when you start.
If I could add one element to my presentation, will be examples. Examples of what we have been able to reach. As women, we have the power. We just need the rights. We have to know what we're capable of. By knowing that, we're able to succeed. The example that I gave in my speech was the un día sin nosotras movement. This is not the only thing that we've been able to do and succeed in. Look at us. We're now able to vote. Women are able to vote now. We were not able to do that before. And this is what I will add to my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. This now concludes the oratory category.
Great job, Oratory. Now calling to the stage, our Extemp finalists are back. They have 30 minutes to prepare for their prompt. So at this time, I'd like to invite back over to the stage our finalists, starting with speaker 1 from tip of Texas, Katie Longoria. And next up, from North Texas, Sofia Garcia.
And just a reminder, please no clapping after they're done with their speeches. All right, so time signals.
4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 5-second break.
You need her to repeat it? Vote ready. Speaker 1, you now have 4 to 5 minutes for your speech, and time starts when you start.
The Ernesto Nieto once said in his book, Third Reality, in chapter 6, the gifted youth have the potential to give our community a much-needed boost in intellectual leadership. Eventually, they would also have the abilities and capabilities to know how to use their skills and expertise to grow new businesses in the Latino marketplace, crafting a new identities of Latinos that shift from the mainstream for dependency. Judge, what does this empowering quote by Ernesto Nieto mean to you? To me, this beautiful quote demonstrates that the young youth have the potential to do amazing things for our society if they are given the resources. Implementing leadership programs will give Latinos a much use in their life. It will help them create role models for other individuals and can inspire them to become leaders. Good afternoon. My name is Katie Longoria, and I am standing here today in representing the roles that the modern day college or universities in developing future civil leaders. Judge, I am calling for a change. Modern day colleges and universities must make it a point to implement leadership programs. Enforcing mandatory classes will provide students the importance of what it is to become a leader. It will give them the understanding and will assist them in becoming a leader and what it means to be one. It is very important that we implement these programs in increasing the leadership abilities of many young Latinos. We must implement these changes and we must make it crucial that we do this. While the opposing side may state that universities shouldn't be entering mandatory leadership classes, I happen to strongly disagree with this. Leadership classes will create a much gain in the Latino community. Latino classes will help because it will give the new generation assistance on leadership. It'll create new role models for leaders and it'll implement them in many different ways. It is important that we create programs and classes that will assist the young youth in how to become a leader. Today I'll be covering the intellectual and economical aspects to prove my argument. Intellectually speaking, colleges and universities must make it a point to create leadership programs and classes. A common question asked by many people is, why should schools teach leadership? It's important for students to experience leadership opportunities during their schooling to learn the art and building relationships within their teams and identifying new leaders and achieving tasks efficiently. It also provides an opportunity to learn and how to identify the effectiveness of what it means to become a leader. It provides an opportunity to learn to identify and display effective communication and interpersonal skills. It gives students an understanding of what it means to become a leader. If students learn how and why leadership is important, they have a higher gain in becoming a leader themselves. This goes to show that if we implement these changes, Latinos have the power to do so much in our community. They can understand what it means to become a leader, and they can have a huge gain in doing so. Another way for colleges to implement and develop future leadership training is involving programs that relate to leadership. Each student must make it a point to join one program that teaches them the effectiveness of leadership. Leaders developing programs provide a way for employees to grow within a community rather than to fulfill their desires for growth. To become a leader is to be and have the ability to influence and guide followers. If students join programs like NHI, they can learn what it becomes to be a leader. In my personal life, I can say that NHI has truly impacted me in me becoming a leader. It has taught me how to guide other students, and I can deeply say that joining this program has made a big factor in my life. And if other students can experience what I experienced, they can have a huge gain in their personal life as well. Now, I'm going to leave you off with a quote. The most dangerous myth of learning to become a leader is that it is a genetically factor and leaders are often born. But this is a common misconception. Leaders must be taught and they are not genetically born. To become a leader is to guide the individuals and to guide the community in becoming the best versions of themselves that they can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Now clap. Speaker 2, you now have a minute to prepare your follow-up question, and time starts now.
You mentioned several times that we need leadership classes and programs in college. Yet only 1 in 5 Latinos make it accepted into college. So could you explain to me why that would be helpful if only 1 in 5 Latinos were receiving this higher education and receiving these classes and programs? Thank you, Judge, for your time. You mentioned several times that colleges need to be mandated to implement college programs and leadership classes. However, only 1 in 5 Latinos get into college. How would these programs have effect if only 1 in 5 Latinos are receiving this higher education and receiving access to these programs?
Speaker 1, you now have 1 minute to prepare your answer. Time starts now.
30 seconds remaining.
Can I have no whispering, please?
Fifteen seconds remaining. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Speaker 1, you now have 1 minute to answer the question. Your time starts when you start.
While only 1 in 5 Latinos have made it to college, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't be actively training others in leadership programs. If only 1 out of 5 Latinos can go to college and learn what it means to become a leader, this means that they can spread the meaningfulness of what it becomes a leader. If only 1 person does this, they can share other ideas and they can help the Latino community and actively train them. If they learn what it means to become a leader, they could also show examples on how to become leaders for other Latinos. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 2, you now have 4 to 5 minutes to present your speech, and time starts when you start. Can I once again please ask no talking? This is your last warning.
As a kid, I always hated school. I thought it was boring, I thought it was unnecessary, and I really just didn't want to go. However, that all changed whenever my mom sat me down and had a talk with me. She explained to me how education had changed her life, how she was never the same after she was able to go to college. Because of this, I believe that I believe that college plays a large role in Latino leaders.
I believe that Latino leaders must have a degree, that colleges must be required to have a leadership class, and that leaders must see college and universities' educational system as a thing to improve. Education is key. It is the key to open all locked doors. I truly believe this. As Ernesto Nieto said in his book, Third Reality, Chapter 9, a modern-day, more progressive depiction of Latinos could be devised to counter stereotypes. I couldn't agree more. In fact, I have a perfect example of a more modern-day progressive Latino, and that is my mother. She was born in poverty in Fort Worth, Texas. She struggled to get through school, and nobody in her family had ever gone to college. However, that all changed when she was 9 years old, a public speaker came in and told her about scholarships. This changed her life forever. She, from then on, worked hard, got straight A's, and got a full ride scholarship to Rice University, and was valedictorian and Miss Tech. I believe this truly shows perseverance. This is what a leader should be. And even though only 24.5% of Latinos get a degree from college, I think that makes them even more worthy of being a leader. Not everybody can be a leader. You have to have the ability to inspire change. You have to have the power to take action. You have to not only speak, but make official actions on your word. I also believe that colleges must be required to have a leadership class. I believe this leadership class should teach things like Fundamental 13, initiate plans and deliver results. That is what a leader is. It is right here on paper. And I believe that a leader can't shine without an opportunity. And that's why these classes are a perfect opportunity for them to shine. This right here, NHI, is a leadership opportunity. We are all here because we are Latinos, we are Latino leaders, and we are here to inspire change. We are here to make a difference. And that is what makes this so powerful. The thing that connects us all, our culture, our education. We are here because we believe that we can make a difference. We are Latino leaders. I do know that the education system has failed Latinos in many ways. For example, 5% of the student body is Latino. 25% of the student body is Latino. However, only 5% of the teachers are Latino. This is infuriating. Teachers are one of the most influential people in our lives. We need that representation. We need them to be role models, and we need to be able to look up to them and see ourselves in them. They should be hope. And yet somehow we have managed to have a 20% difference in teachers and students. Where are we getting our representation? What is our hope? What are we looking up to? I believe that Fundamental 7, behave like a stakeholder. That is what a leader should do. I think that that leader should represent us. I believe that that leader should explain why this is a problem. I believe that they should make a change in the Latino in the college education system. I truly believe that if we are able to improve the college education system, get more knowledge and educated leaders, that we can truly change the Latino social narrative. We can, from one Latino to another, we can improve our social narrative. We can make it more accurate, and we can debunk racist stereotypes of us. Thank you, Judge. I yield my time.
Thank you. Speaker 1, you now have 1 minute to prepare your follow-up question, and time starts now.
Seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. Speaker one, you now have 1 minute to state your question. Time starts when you start.
Judge, in my opponent's speech, she stated that her mother gained and used scholarships to get into college. However, the prompt is asking what should be the rule that the modern day colleges do to develop future civil leaders. How does your mother correlate with developing future leaders in our society? Thank you.
Speaker two, you now have 1 minute to prepare for your speech. Time starts when you start.
Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds remaining. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. Speaker two, you now have 1 minute to answer the question. Time starts when you start.
Not only did I mention that my mother was a major leader in her school days, but she is also the head of an international law firm. She represents our community every day and speaks on behalf of Latinos all over America. I do believe that she's the perfect example of a leader, which is why I use her, why I think she is the perfect example of what leaders should aspire to be. Thank you, Judge. I yield my time.
Thank you. And this now concludes extemporaneous speaking.
And our final debate of the debate portion of the program before we invite our Athenian speakers. As a reminder, start to get yourself ready because immediately afterwards we're going to invite you up to give your presentation. But at this time I'd like to invite to the stage our mock trial finalists representing San Antonio in the side of plaintiff, the attorney Dylan Orozco, and the witness Aiden Gonzalez. Arguing on the side of the defense from Chippa, Texas, the attorney Regina Garcia and the witness Emily Gonzalez. So as a reminder, we ask that respectfully keep all the silence to the end of the program. There's a clash up here, which is great. It's what we want to see. But let's hold all the comments, all the applauses. And I'm going to yield over here to the tournament director who are going to guide you. The tournament director is going to swear you in for the witnesses. And just looking at the space over here, where is the witness? If the witnesses can sit on the inside, please. And the tournament director, just because of space up here, I'm going to ask that the witnesses, when you are sworn in, to stand. He'll guide you, and then you can be at your seats, and you will use the microphone at the table. And the attorney who will be doing direct or cross-examine, we ask that you come here to the podium. Okay? Let me just brief them on something really quickly. And again, you need the names. Emil, I'm sorry. Emil Gonzalez, who's the witness. Sorry about that, Emil.
Do you have any evidence to submit plaintiff?
We would like to submit Exhibit 5, Exhibit 15A, Exhibit 17A, Exhibit 14.1E, and 14.1I.
We would like to
minutes remaining. Minutes remaining.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Bruno Roscoe, and I'm the plaintiff's attorney. This is my expert witness, Aiden Dahl. The issue brought before trial states that Latino civic leaders' use of social advocacy and reform practices are inconsistent with the values and goals of the community found in Article 11 of the Social Utility Code. The defense is in violation of subsection B, which states whether it promotes social, political, intellectual, cultural, and economic progress. D, whether it promotes our cultural values. And F, whether to encourage Latinos to look for answers and solutions from within the community before looking for answers and solutions from outside the community. Your Honor, social advocacy is defined as organized efforts aimed at influencing public attitudes, laws, and policies to create a more just society. Reforms are to make changes in the community, whether it's socially, economically, or politically. Your Honor, social advocacy has worked in the past, but it fails to be the thing that we need today. There is a 32% wage gap between white and Latinos, and it seems almost untouchable. Since 1970, Latino poverty levels have also fluctuated over time, but only corresponding to everyone else's poverty level. Social advocacy has shown no significance due to anyone else's because everyone are changing with ours. Movements have also created undesirable images for us. We are seen as blue-collar workers, legal immigrants, and uneducated. And when these social movements, which is a form of social advocacy, become violent, we are not only seen as uneducated, but violent. That is a horrible duo to have as an image of the Latino community. And identity being such a strong point of the Latino community, it is in hard violation of this. We are relying on others through social advocacy to make a change for us. We are looking to them, allowing for them to judge us, Your Honor. The future lies within the Latino community, not looking outside. We need to use community equity building to build ourselves up and not rely on other people, Your Honor. With us being so uneducated and having such a prevalent wage gap, social advocacy has shown that it's not working.
Time.
Your Honor, may I have the floor? You may. May it please the Court, Your Honor, and the opposing counsel. My name is Regina Garcia, and I am the attorney in representation of the Latino Community Defense. I, along with my witness, Omio Gonzalez, will intend to prove to you today that the issue proper for trial is consistent and in compliance with the Social Utility Code 11.01 and its determining factors 11.02. Your Honor, Article 11.01 states, whether approaches to a problem are just to the extent that they serve and promote the community's general welfare. Your Honor, you might be wondering, what exactly is the community's general welfare? Your Honor, the community's general welfare consists of the improvements that our community makes and how we progress towards a better standard of living. In order to promote the general welfare of our community, we must progress and we must improve. Your Honor, Article 11.01 is the ultimate determining law of the community and what we will be basing this trial off today. A reminder that the subsections are merely factors that can be considered, but Article 11.01 is the ultimate determining law for this trial and the Latino community. Your Honor, social advocacy and reform practices, by definition, are to make changes to improve and finding solutions to problems. Your Honor, social advocacy and reform practices are approaches to problems used by our leaders to overcome and solve our problems. Your Honor, when we are overcoming our problems, if we are moving forward, then by definition, we are progressing. Your Honor, throughout the course of this trial, I will intend to prove to you today that through the use of social advocacy and reform practice, we are currently overcoming our problems. And by definition, we are progressing because we are moving forward together as a community. Your Honor, if we progress, then we are promoting the community's general welfare and therefore upholding Article 11. We are coming together as a community to solve all our problems and move forward and advance. Therefore, we are progressing and in compliance with Article 11 of the Social Utility Code. Your Honor, the plaintiff bears the burden of proof, meaning that they must prove a clear and obvious distraction. And if any doubt remains in your mind, then the defense would have done its job. Thank you.
The plaintiff now have 3 minutes to direct the witness. May.
Permission to direct examine my witness. Are you a proud member of the Latino community?
Yes, Your Honor. I am a very proud member of the Latino community. Your Honor, the issue proper for trial states whether Latino civic leaders' use of social advocacy and reform practices is inconsistent with the values and goals of the community found under Article 11 of the Social Utility Code. Today, Your Honor, we as the plaintiff, are accusing the defense of being in violation of subsection B, which states whether it is in the social, political, intellectual, cultural, and economic progress of the whole community. Subsection D, which states whether it promotes the cultural values of the whole community. And subsection F, which states whether it encourages Latinos to seek answers and solutions from within the community before seeking answers and solutions from outside institutions.
Can you read Exhibit 5A?
This year marks the 45th and 50th anniversaries of at least 17 Latino urban riots. These incidents have happened at least 57 times since 1964. Your Honor, the defense's use of social advocacy has caused the deaths of over 17 Latinos, Your Honor. This clearly does not promote the cultural values, nor does it help us as a community, Your Honor.
Can you read Exhibit 15A?
Despite high educational expectations, Hispanics are among the least educated group in the United States. 11% of those over age 25 have earned a bachelor's degree or higher, compared with 17% of blacks, 30% of whites, and 49% of Asian Americans in the same age group.
Can you read Exhibit 17A?
In the United States, Latino workers earn the lowest median wages of any major racial group, just $15 compared with $22 of their white counterparts, a 32% difference. Your Honor, education and wage goes hand in hand, Your Honor. Without high wage gaps for the Latino community, we are not able to get the necessary educational funds for us to provide the education for our youth.
Can you explain how education and finance go hand in hand?
Your Honor, the Texas law, the way we get educational funds, Your Honor, is through property taxes. And Your Honor, right now, because of our low wages, we are not able to pay these educational funds in order for us to educate our Latino community, Your Honor.
Can you read Exhibit 14.1I from Periodic?
I bit into the American mainstream, hook, line, and sinker. I was out to prove myself, show others that I possessed all the right ingredients to succeed. Sometimes this meant turning away from the basic values and beliefs.
Defense, you may now have 3 minutes to cross-examine.
Are you aware that 11.01 is the law that we are basing this trial on today?
Yes, Your Honor, I am aware
Thank
that
you.
11...
Are you also aware that the subsections under 11.01 are just factors to be considered?
Your Honor, the subsections are what we are basing this case off of, Your Honor.
Are you aware that 11.01 is the law we are basing this trial on today, and the subsections are just factors to be considered?
Your Honor, the subsections are not just factors to be considered. If even the slightest infraction of a subsection is considered,
Thank you.
then...
Are you aware that being in compliance with 11.01 means to be in compliance with the entire Social Utility Code?
Could you repeat the question?
Are you aware that being in compliance with 11.01 means to be in compliance with the entire Social Utility Code?
Yes, Your Honor, I am aware of
Thank
this,
you.
but if even the slightest
Are you
infraction
aware?
of the...
11.01 states, approaches to a problem are just to the extent that they serve and promote the community's general welfare.
Could you repeat the question?
Are you aware that 11.01 states, approaches to a problem are just to the extent that they serve and promote the community's general welfare?
Your Honor, I am aware of this.
Thank you. So then, you agree that approaches that achieve progress, improvement within the community are in compliance with the Social Utility Code?
No, Your Honor, I do not agree with this whatsoever. Social advocacy and
Would you
reform
not agree
practices
that
have caused me...
progress and improvement within the community serve and promote our general welfare?
Your Honor, we are not making progress through social advocacy and reform
But
practices,
would
Your Honor.
you, if there was progress, would you agree that it is an improvement that it promotes our general welfare?
Your Honor, promoting our general welfare is not something that we as a community are
Would you
needing to
not
worry
want
about.
our community to progress?
Your Honor, that is not what I am saying. In order to progress, we must use community equity building, Your Honor, not social advocacy
Thank
and
you.
reform practices which
So
has
you
caused
agree
over 17
that
Latino
approaches
deaths,
that
Your Honor.
achieve progress and improvement from within the community are in compliance with the Social Utility Code, correct?
Repeat the question.
So do you agree that approaches that achieve progress and improvement within our community are in compliance with the Social Utility Code?
No, Your Honor, not all approaches are. Social
Are
advocacy
you
and
aware
reform
that reform
practices.
practices serve to implement policy change throughout time?
Your Honor, these reform practices that you have stated are absolutely outdated,
Are
and
you
in order
aware
for us,
that social advocacy serves to influence policies and laws? Yes or no?
could you repeat the question?
Are you aware that social advocacy serves to influence policies and laws? Yes or no?
Your Honor, that is not true whatsoever, and no, I am not aware
Are
of
you
this.
aware
as
that this was
clearly-
approved by the National Hispanic Institution for the purposes of this trial?
Could you repeat the question?
Are you aware that all this was approved by the National Hispanic Institution for the purposes of this trial?
I am aware of this, Your Honor, but
Thank
in
you.
Ernesto
then you
Nieto's
agree
third
that
reality.
changes in policies and laws are attributed to social advocacy and reform practices, correct?
Could you repeat the question?
So then you agree that changes in policies and laws are attributed to social advocacy and reform practices, correct?
Your Honor, in the past, these social advocacy and reform policies may have worked, but now
Thank you.
community equity
Are
building
you-
is something that we need.
Thank you,
Community
Your Honor.
equity
No
building
further time
would-
needed.
Is there anything you'd like to clear up?
Yes, Your Honor. There is some things I would like to clear up. Social advocacy and reform practices may have worked in the past, but they are not working now, Your Honor. As you can see, they have caused over 17 deaths since 1964, and now we need to use community equity building. Your Honor, community equity building would not only be in compliance with subsection F, but it would also help the community, the Latino community as a whole. Your Honor, this community needs community equity building in order for us to move forward.
If social advocacy has worked, but relies on outside resources, is it consistent with our values?
No, Your Honor, this is not consistent with our cultural values, and it does make us go to outside institutions, which clearly violates subsection F.
Is peace a cultural value?
Yes, Your Honor, peace is a cultural value, and these riots have obviously violated this cultural value, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I have the floor? Are you aware that social advocacy and reform practices are merely approaches that can be used to approach problems?
Yes, Your Honor, I am aware, and they have become
Are you aware
outdated.
that approaches is a plural word?
Yes, I am
Are
aware
you
that
aware that
approaches
this
is-
means that there are multiple approaches to these problems?
Yes, but right now we are talking about social advocacy and reform practices. These are the only
Exactly.
two ones
So
we need to
therefore,
worry about as of right
that
now.
Social advocacy and reform practices can contribute to many different approaches.
Could you repeat the question?
Therefore, you agree that social advocacy and reform practices can contribute to many different approaches to problems.
No, I do not agree with this
But
at all,
didn't
Your
you
Honor.
just say-
Community equity building is the solution to
Didn't
social
you just
advocacy and
agree-
reform practices.
Okay. Are you aware that community equity is justice to the community, correct?
Could you repeat the question?
Are you aware that community equity is justice for the community?
Yes, Your Honor. Community equity does
Would
provide
you say
justice
that
for the community.
progress is just for the community?
Yes, Your Honor, but this progress is in the past. It is not in the present anymore. And
Thank
community
you, Your
equity
Honor. No
building,
further time needed. Your Honor, may my witness take the stand? There he is. Your Honor, may I approach the stand? You may. Please state your name and purpose for the court.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Emil Gonzalez, and I am here in representation of the Latino Community Defense. I intend to prove to you today that the issue proper for trial is consistent and in compliance with Social Utility Code 11.01 and its determining factors 11.02.
What subsections are being upheld and how?
Subsections A, B, D, and F are being upheld. Your Honor, subsection A states whether it is in the rational self-interest of the whole community. Latino civic leaders' use of social advocacy and reform practices are consistent with the Social Utility Code because, Your Honor, I would like to start by defining social advocacy and reform practices. Social advocacy is the practice of advocating for solutions to social issues. Reform means to make changes to improve. Your Honor, how can finding solutions and making changes to improve not be in our rational self-interest? Like any community, we want to grow and take care of our people. To complete this goal, we fix our issues to make our community strong and self-sufficient. Your Honor, Ernesto Nieto said in chapter 9 of his book, The 30 Items, create another life for them. That's all that inspires them. It's having a new reason to live outside of what they have understood. Your Honor, what this means is that providing new opportunities for Latinos by fixing our issues serves to promote the community's general welfare. Your Honor, subsection B states whether it promotes the social, economic, political, intellectual, and cultural progress of the whole community. Economically, Your Honor, did you know that the number of Latino-owned businesses has grown over 34% through the last decade, compared to just 1% for all other business owners in the U.S.? For all other business, this number has grown and continued to see progress through the continued use of social advocacy and reform practices. Politically, Your Honor, more than 11 million Latinos voted in 2012, and by 2030, 40 million more are expected to vote. The progress we can see in our expected trajectory will be a great accomplishment for the Latino community if we continue to use social advocacy and reform practices. Intellectually, Your Honor, in 1995, the percentage of adult Hispanics and Latinos with a diploma, high school diploma, was 53%. Last year, that number has been reported to be at 72%. Clearly, through our community's continued use of social advocacy and reform practices, our people have made great progress and intellectually and academically. Your Honor, subsection D states whether it promotes the cultural values of the community. The progress seen under social advocacy and reform practices is a clear indicator that we are upholding our cultural values of being self-sufficient. Because we are progressing, we are taking care of our community. And we are showing our citizens that we are reliant on ourselves and that we are strong enough to help them. Your Honor, subsection F states whether it encourages Latinos to seek answers and solutions within the community before seeking answers and solutions from outside institutions. Clearly, we have proven that the Latino community is progressing. Thus, we are self-sufficient and independent. Because we are taking care of ourselves as a self-sufficient community, we care for our people. Through the use of social advocacy and reform practices, our people know that we solve issues and they will continue to seek answers and solutions within the community because they know we can help them. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Plaintiffs do not have 3 minutes to cross examine.
Permission to cross-examine you. When you were listing the subsection that they were in compliant with, did you leave out B and C?
Your Honor, we were not being accused of violating subsection C.
Although you named all the ones that they were inconsistent, why did you leave out 2?
Well, because, Your Honor, I wanted to make sure I addressed the ones we were being violated with, so you knew we were in defense. I had no further time to defend the ones that were not being accused of violating.
Is peace a cultural value?
Of course it is.
If social movements become riots, does that promote peace?
Your Honor, there are many other approaches to solving issues than rioting. We do not condone rioting even though it happens.
Are you aware that social advocacy can instigate those riots?
Your Honor, again, we do not condone riots, but there are other approaches to solve our issues in a positive manner that reflects a strong...
Can you name me how you would do this?
Yes, Your Honor. Our politicians, our Latino politicians in positions of power can use their influence to tell our community things we can do to make ourselves stronger.
Are you aware of the issue proper for trial?
Yes, I am.
Can you state the issue proper for trial?
The issue proper for trial states whether Latino civic leaders' use of social advocacy and reform practices are just to the extent that they serve and promote to community and are unjust to the extent...
Are we talking about other options, or are we talking about social advocacy and reform?
Your Honor, I am saying there are other ways of using social advocacy and reform practices other than rioting. I'm not saying other approaches, I'm saying approaches by using...
But would you agree that social advocacy can cause riots?
Again, we do not condone rioting, that is what I just said. There are positive ways where we can inflict change that will help our community.
Can you name me one social movement?
No, I cannot.
You could not name a single social movement?
You're being very broad. There's been a lot of social movements in history.
I'm just asking you to name, can you name me one social movement? can't name me one social movement, how do you even expect to argue the issue part of the trial?
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant. Rule of evidence 502. The plaintiff has no reason to be asking my witness for a social movement. It has nothing to do with the purposes of this trial.
Your Honor, the issue part of the trial states for a civic leader's use of social advocacy, and social movement is a form of social advocacy.
Your Honor, it's whether Latinos can use of social advocacy and reform practices. It has nothing to do with social movement.
Are you aware of gentrification?
No, I'm not. Can you please define it?
It is when
Your Honor, clearly social advocacy and reform practices have shown our
Are you
communities
aware
progress,
that
and
Latinos have a
we are
high
social-
concentration in high poverty neighborhoods?
Your Honor, this is a problem, and social advocacy and reform practices point out our
Are
problems.
you
and
aware
allow
that
us to find
gentrification is a
solutions.
reform practice?
Can you please repeat the question?
Are you aware that gentrification is a reform practice?
Again, I do not know what gentrification is. Can you please define it?
Your Honor, the witness is asking you to define something. Is unity a cultural value?
Please repeat.
Is unity a cultural value?
Yes, Your Honor, and our community is strong and.
If gentrification misplaces and gets rid of the Latinos in those poor area neighborhoods to make richer, are we promoting unity?
Please repeat the question.
Your Honor, may I approach the stand?
Is there anything you would like to clarify?
Yes, there is, Your Honor. There are other approaches, but you can use social advocacy and reform practices in other ways than writing. It is a very wide subject. You do not have to write it to use social advocacy and reform practices. We can use our politicians and places of influence to talk to our community and talk to other communities, to talk to just our community so that we can allocate funds from our community around the community. Yeah, we can create programs within our community to help with poverty, to help with starving, to help with people who are hungry. Your Honor, we're not here to talk about past social movements. We are here to talk about the present and the future of the Latino community and how social advocacy and reform practices will help them. And Your Honor, we have proven there is clear progress that social advocacy and reform practices allows us to accomplish. We are progressing and we are moving forward, which means we are consistent with the social utility code, which means the defense is consistent. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Is social advocacy asking for help?
No, Your Honor, we are solving our issues. That's what it means. We advocate for
Can
solutions.
you define
to
social advocacy?
Social advocacy means to advocate for solutions to social issues, which bringing light to those
Okay,
issues
thank you.
allows us
Who
to
are we
solve them and
advocating
in turn
to?
create a stronger community.
Who are we advocating to?
Our citizens. We can ask our citizens to do their part to help our community progress.
Are those people inside the Latino community?
If we are addressing our Latino community, then yes, they are inside the Latino community.
Who was the Chicano movement advocated to?
Objection, Your Honor. Rule of evidence 504, outside scope of BDX. My witness did not state anything in his direct examination of the Chicano movement.
Are you aware of the Chicano movement? Do you know who social advocacy is advocating to?
Well, yes, as previously stated, it is advocating to our community and is asking our citizens to do their part to help
Wouldn't
our
that be community
progress.
equity building, not social advocacy?
Well, Your Honor, we are also finding the issues within our community and then solving those issues.
seconds remaining. Five, four, three, two, one.
Permission to get my focus slip. The issue proper for trial states where Latino civic leaders' use of social advocacy and reasonable practices are inconsistent with the values and goals found in Article 11 of Social Utility Code. Your Honor, the defense is obviously in violations of subsection B, D, and F. During my witness's DX, he stated that there's a 32% wage gap between whites and Latinos, and it's almost untouchable. Your Honor, social advocacy isn't working, and because it isn't doing anything to reduce that wage gap. That wage gap directly affects education because of the way Texas schooling is funded. Your Honor, if we can't get our people to have a high finance, then we can't provide the education they need to become wealthier later on. Your Honor, it's a never-ending cycle. Ernesto Yesto said that dominated people have no sense of self-direction. Your Honor, through social advocacy, we are advocating to other people. We're not going to ourselves. We can be dominated because we give them the opportunity to judge us, Your Honor. When I asked the opposing witness to name a social movement, Your Honor, they couldn't. They didn't even consider social movement part of social advocacy, even though social advocacy can be used through a social movement. Your Honor, if they can't name me even one social movement, how can we trust them? Because how would they know what you're talking about? Your Honor, community equity building is the only way we can look to ourselves and improve it. Your Honor, they say we are making progress, yet the wage gap is untouchable. They say that you only have to be in violation of one subsection to violate the whole social utility code, Your Honor. And besides not making progress and being stuck in a loop, we're also looking at outside institutions, Your Honor. We're also in violation of our cultural values as social advocacy, which in the use of social movements can create riots which go against peace, one of our major cultural values, which goes against our unity. And NHI, being family-based, it's an atrocity to be in violation of that. Your Honor, he said,
Time.
Your Honor, may I have the floor? Your Honor, I would like to begin by restating the issue proper for trial. The issue proper for trial today was where Latino civic leaders' use of social advocacy and reform practices was consistent with the values and goals of our community as found under Social Utility Code. Your Honor, Article 11.01 is the determining law of the Latino community and the purposes of this trial, and it states that if our approaches to a problem progress the community and promote its general welfare, that we are in compliance with the Social Utility Code and Article 11.01. Your Honor, the opposing counsel agreed to all of my questions. They agreed that progress is just and necessary to our community, but then tried to deny all of my evidence. Your Honor, just because social advocacy and reform practices, the definitions do not make their arguments easy, does not mean that they mean that we have to approach with violence. Social advocacy and reform practices just are approaches to a problem, and they do not have to be used with violence. The opposing counsel defines these as violent protests because it makes their arguments easy. But the reality is, Your Honor, that they are merely approaches to problems that our Latino civic leaders use. And the way they use this is that they address our Latino community. They tell them this is what is wrong with our community, unfortunately, but this is what you can do as a member of this community to fix it. This is what you can invest into your community to fix our problems so that our Latino community can reach its full potential. Your Honor, Latino leaders do. Your Honor, more than 11 million Latinos voted in 2012, and 40 million are expected to vote by 2030. This is progress in the past and in the future. This shows practicing all aspects of time, which the opposing counsel said that we were not doing. Your Honor, clearly this evidence shows that through the use of social advocacy and reform practices, we are not only progressing in the past, but we will continue to progress in the future. Your Honor, the opposing counsel accused my witness of not knowing a social movement. Your Honor, the opposing counsel did not include any evidence of the social movement in their evidence packet, and they are the plaintiff. They set the perimeters for this trial. They cannot ask us to know a social movement without providing any evidence of any social movement in their evidence packet. Your Honor, as I stated before, the plaintiff sets the parameters for this trial, and therefore they can accuse us of the subsections. If my witness did not mention a subsection, it is because the opposing counsel did not accuse us under the subsection, and it is not within his right to advocate for that subsection. Your Honor, now we don't condone violence, and I said, as the other witness, the opposing counsel agreed to, there are many different approaches, and they do not have to include violence at all, as there are different approaches to each problem, which is exactly what social advocacy and reform practices are. Your Honor, providing new opportunities for Latinos to improve the standards of living, services to promote the community's general welfare. As Ernesto Nieto once said in his book, Third Reality, Chapter 9, crear otra vida para ellos. Solo esto los inspira. Es tener un nuevo motivo para vivir fuera de lo que han entendido. Thank you, Your Honor. No further time needed.
Permission to give my vote. Your Honor, they say that we're arguing about progress. Your Honor, yes, social advocacy has made progress in the past, but how have they made it? Your Honor, they made it by looking into outside institutions, which is in clear violation of subsection F. And if one subsection of the social utility code is violated, the whole utility code is violated, Your Honor. We're not arguing whether social advocacy is completely bad or not. We're arguing whether it is in violation, and it is obviously in violation. They say that there's alternate opportunity, that we don't have to always riot, but the fact that there are riots in the first place, when community equity building doesn't have riots as an option at all, it doesn't instigate option. They are sticking to an old method that has flaws, and we could move to community equity building, where we promote ourselves, we don't look at outside institutions, and we keep peace, one of the main cultural values of the community, Your Honor. They are obviously in violation because due to the wage gap, we're not doing economic growth, Your Honor. We have in the past, but we were fighting for basic rights. We're now fighting to make everything equal, and community equity building gives us the opportunity to make it equal. Social advocacy.
One of our final, and it's not so much of a debate, but a presentation in the round of Athenian. And I'm going to invite our 6 speakers to come up here to the front, and I will make sure that I read slow so that you can write them down. for our judges. So when I call your name, and I'm going to call you by name, your team name, and which region you are from. When I call your name, come up here and grab a seat at the front. From House Maxwell, Roland Duncan from Team Raven Pub, and also from San Antonio. Out of the swamps of Louisiana, drove here, got here late to come in and compete, so congratulations. Next member from House Maxwell, James Hernandez from Team Velvet, and also from San Antonio. And the third member of House Maxwell, Yareli Ovando from the Tide Pod and from RGV. Now from House Maxwell, the teams, the speakers from House Maxwell, from the Brain Cells, from San Antonio, Tabitha Kennedy. Speaker from House Magnolia, from Team Girl Bosses Slave Queen from Austin, Lucas West Castillo. From Team Magnolitas from San Antonio, Miguel Olvera. Let's give a big round of applause for our Athenian speakers. Have a seat. So the speaking order is going to be from the end all the way here. Before you speak, I just ask that you state your name so that the judges know they have it on their scoring sheet. In Athenian, they broke up and created small teams that we call pods of members from different regions, and they were issued a challenge, and they went through a process in which they were selected amongst their own team to represent them in a speaking presentation. We took the top speakers from one house and sent them over to the other house for round 4, and we switched, and each of the houses voted for the top 3 in each house, so that is why they're here. And their prompt was as follows. The author writes, the challenge facing the National Hispanic Institute is to give rise to a community belief system capable of leading Latino youth in a different direction. One compelling enough to attract them to develop a sense of exploration. The author goes on to further state, as a community, we have the capacity to create different pathways that add much needed value in training future leaders. So they were asked to write, comment on how you, and is in chapter Free Your Mind from Third Reality, of youth in our community in order to give rise to new community beliefs and to create different pathways that training new future Latino leaders need. And that was their prompt as they prepared. So I will turn it over to our MC. We will start on the end and make our way. And when you're finished, I just ask that you speak directly into the microphone. When you're finished, you can have a seat, and then we will conclude all of our debates and presentations. You are welcome to stand and use the podium, or you can grab the microphone and use it with your hand.
My name is Rowan Duncan from San Antonio.
So Rowan, we're going to give you the time for this. How much time were y'all asked to prepare?
We had 10-minute preparation time.
And then for how long was your speech?
1 minute.
1 minute. So if you wouldn't mind, clock manager, to show them the time. They have 1 minute. Let's stay on stage because we've got cameras.
I've learned a lot from my experience at the NHI Great Debate Program. One of the most important things that I've learned was at a meeting not too long ago. We were discussing how we influence each other, and the topic of third reality came up. I was not aware of this topic at the time, so I asked. And I learned that it means how you influence yourself, your goals, your values. This freed my mind and made me aware of how much I was influenced by outside sources. It allowed me to look into myself and see my own values, my goals, my beliefs. Not just the ones I was taught. I want to create a program that teaches youth about the third reality. This will free their minds from the chains of influence and allow them to look inside themselves for their values, their goals, their beliefs, so that they may present this to the community and these new ideas to the community to give rise to new cultural beliefs, new cultural values, and become new leaders. And as Danetta stated, this will lead to the youth to create a new, different future.
I believe the best way to free the mind of Latino youth is to encourage the use of student-student teaching. According to a study provided to me by my teacher, student-student teaching increases classroom efficiency by 40%. She has been practicing this for 5 years, and based off of this, she has reported that she has had an easier time in getting her students to understand the material ever since the practice has been implemented. My teacher practices this in a Latino-dominated school, and based off of this, it proves that student-student teaching can free the mind of the Latino youth. Imagine if we implement this across Latino schools in Texas. We may witness a revolution in education for Latino youth. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Yareli Obando from the region RGB. And I believe a way that we could free the mind to rise for new beliefs and different pathways is to have our cultures and beliefs evolve as each generation differentiates from one another. Our community of such a high population has many strict beliefs, such as keeping quiet, which in turn leads to many voices being unheard, and having to listen to our elders teach us, even when their teachings may be unstandard for nowadays. The youngest generation, which is us, has made our own beliefs by having outside perspective provided by the new technology, which is social media and online articles. We, as the Latino community, must encourage the individuality and confidence for wanting those leadership roles as we to show the world that we are no longer a minority, that we are growing leaders. Thank you.
Kennedy from San Antonio. Ernesto Nieto once said, "As a community, we have the capacity to create different pathways that add much needed value in training future Latino leaders." I believe through this quote, Ernesto Nieto is telling us that we must write our own story. The fundamental that embodies this quote is number 24, create the opportunity. This fundamental tells us that no matter the discrimination, hate, and negative social labels that might try to define us, we must pave our own pathway and create our own narrative. To free the mind of future Latino leaders, I would promote and continue the legacy of the National Hispanic Institute within my own community by reaching out to more schools and providing scholarship opportunities for low-income students. In conclusion, I believe that creating new and better pathways would promote higher college enrollment rates, new job opportunities, and positive social labels in our Latino community. Thank you for your time.
From Austin, Texas. As Ernesto Nieto stated in their reality, decades of history, personal experiences, and social conditions had impacted my values and beliefs. I believe that more emphasis on incorporating community equity building will free the minds of the youth in our community and will give a rise to new community beliefs. A strong community will nurture Latino youth and experiences and nurture the values that leaders need. And this nourishment of values and beliefs, like Ernesto Nieto said, will create stronger leaders and will form leaders that will lead our community into greatness. And by bringing together the Latino community through similar drives and through similar motives, more students will have access to more teachers, resources, and perspectives and role models. And this is so important because Latinos only have a political representation of 1.2%. Seeing leaders like them in spaces of leadership and in their communities will push them to become leaders and will push them to take the values that they learned to become leaders within their community. Thank you.
My name is Miguel Angel Rivera and I'm from San Antonio. We as Latinos know that since the past Latinos have been treated uniquely and have been segregated, we all correspond to the same familia. We're part of a community that has now risen and is going to change Latino minds into a new direction. We must start now. If we have learned something from all these years, it's that we have the capacity to free ourselves. Like Ernesto Nieto quoted in his reality book, we need to become visionaries who transform ideas into action, persuading others who might be afraid to take a stand. And to achieve all these, we must start implementing new reforms, actions and beliefs that will get us to a brighter tomorrow. Most importantly, we need to seek for our youth, provide them the tools necessary to achieve what they believe on. Their values and beliefs should be rising proudly and should be taken in account whenever we act. Let's be proud and let's deliver them the education they need. Education is the key to success. I am a proud member of the Latino community. Soy un miembro honorable de la comunidad latina. Thank you.
Luis, I'm going to ask that we go ahead and shut off the live stream, but thank you for joining us. This will be recorded online on our YouTube channel that you can go back and watch.